A good name.
So welcome to the Inside Cafe. I'm your host, 𝗠𝘃𝗶𝘀, and gosh, today I have Mavis Karn as our guest today. And Mavis Karn is a highly sought after teacher, coach, counselor in the Three Principles community. And she is super well known for her work with youth in juvenile detention centers. And she's also the author of one of my favorite letters ever written ever. It's called The Secret, and so that will be in the description. And before we start, Mavis, I just want to tell you what you mean to me. So when I first came into this conversation, every time you spoke on a webinar, in a class at Supercoach Academy, there was something about the way you articulated wisdom and listening and knowing that just cut right through all the noise and just hit my heart every single time. And every time I listened to you, it was always the right thing I needed to hear. And I can't tell you how much of a difference it's made, especially when things got really dark in my thinking and I felt lost and I felt kind of discouraged and hopeless. But I remembered your words saying how wisdom is always with you. And I've heard that so many times, but when you said it, for some reason, it stuck. And I heard something in that. And I can't tell you how impactful that's been for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm curious. But
Yes.
why do you suppose that is?
To me, and this goes to our topic today about listening, I think there's something about the truth that you're pointing to that there's a feeling to it that just feels true, like when you say it, about like how wisdom really is always with you, compared to when I was trying to understand that intellectually.
So for some reason or other, that day or days or whatever, you heard the truth.
Yes.
And do you know why you know that?
Actually, I thought I did up until you asked me.
Well, it's not a trick question.
Yeah. I think it was, I can't even just articulate it now. It was a felt sense of just.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, felt sense of just not needing to. I don't have the science behind it, but I just knew. Yeah.
That's because you know what I know. It's not because of what I know. It's that you know what I know.
Yeah.
Because see, the reason I keep pointing to that is because I'm 81, okay? So I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around. I have plans, so I've got work to do, so I hope I'm around long. But clearly I'm not going to be around another 50 years. So if I just like keeled over and went on to the next place right now, you'd be in trouble if you thought it was all about me.
That's a very good point.
Okay. And so that's the simple fact of why you heard what you heard, because you know what I know.
Yeah.
And when you hear it, you know it's the truth.
Yeah.
I didn't put it in you.
Yeah.
I didn't make it up. I'm not the source of it.
Yeah. I just realized that for the first time. Well, that was a great podcast. Thanks for coming on. This was fantastic. To segue into what I want to ask you about, I think, so today wanted to ask you about listening, because I think that's such a big part in the transformative nature of what we're pointing to. And I realize now, again that your experience of listening is probably very different to me than and also most people, even though what's in you is also in me. So I'd love to just ask you, what to you, what's listening? What's the nature of listening to you?
It's kind of a decision I make. I used to listen like probably how most people listen. I'd listen and I'd analyze and I'd process and I'd label and I'd diagnose and I'd think of an example of what they were saying and I'd rush in with that and I'd get reminded of something and I'd say that or but I didn't know that that wasn't actually listening to someone else. That was listening to my own mental activity about someone else or about what they were saying. I was basically just listening to myself. I had no idea I was doing it. It was very embarrassing. And I used to listen and just make a lot of assumptions about what people were saying. Even if they just used a certain word, I'd make an assumption about what they meant by that word. And as I learned that there's a different way of listening, I heard myself assuming really loud. And so I would stop and I'd say, would you tell me what you mean by that word or that phrase or whatever? And I couldn't believe how wrong my assumptions had been. It was so embarrassing. I just wanted to go back and have every conversation I'd ever had all over again so I could actually hear what somebody was trying to get across to me. So the way that I listen now is it's a decision I make to make what somebody else is trying to get across to me more important than anything I have to think about or say. It's a goal. It's not just to be polite. It's that when I listen to somebody else that way, it's like, well, I've described it as like there's a golden cord between their heart and mine. And there isn't anything that feels better than that. To actually to feel the oneness of us all. That's my way of feeling that. I've heard people talk about the oneness forever and ever and ever. And it's kind of an intellectual thing. Yeah, we're all one and we're, of course. But when I listen to someone, I can feel that. I can feel how connected we all are. And it has nothing to do with what they're saying. Nothing to do with it. I will have, when I'm listening that well, I'll have these, oh, I get it. And I don't know, what comes into my head really has nothing to do with what they were saying. It was what was in their heart and that they were trying to get to.
Yeah.
Like when we started this conversation, I was just listening to you. And I heard you think something that wasn't true. I heard you think that I knew something you didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And so it's my job when I hear that to say, excuse me, but that's not true. So Do you actually know anybody that doesn't like to be listened to?
No, I was, when as you were talking, what came to me is, I think somebody said it a long time ago, some of the things that we crave is to be heard and to be seen and to be felt. And it's what I'm reflecting now is how, in listening in the way that you're speaking to, we have that ability to give that to everybody we come in contact with,
Including ourselves.
including ourselves. I'd love for you to speak to that.
It
Yeah.
is a win-win thing.
Mm.
It's a um, do you have children?
No, but I've worked with children for 8+ years, teaching them martial arts.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
from like 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds. Like I've worked with, I love
Right.
working with kids.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Um, I have a niece that has a new baby,
Mm.
her first baby. It just, and she's about 4 months old now. And
Yeah.
I don't get to see them. I live in California, and because of the pandemic,
Mm.
but they send me videos. And there's usually one of them talking to the baby, and um, she sees them,
Mm.
and she lights up,
Yeah.
and then they light up. And there's nobody saying anything. It's just, they're just, it's this connection
Yeah.
that just I've had 3 kids. There's just nothing like it.
Mm.
I when my firstborn was, my oldest was a baby, the dishes would pile up and the laundry would pile up, and I'd be just having him sit with me or lay in the bed, and I just watch him, and it's just like there's nothing like that connection,
Mm.
that interaction at I don't know, at a God level. And I think listening does that for us. To just, it's kind of a hard thing to find words for, isn't it? It's just,
It's a felt sense.
what's happened to me since I just listen in a different way is that if every once in a while some of my own mental activity creeps in there, it is so loud.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having somebody in your car turning the music way up so that you're just rattling your teeth. Right?
Mm.
So it's gotten so kind of intolerable to listen in the old way because it's not rewarding. It's not.
Yeah. I would imagine if, in the way that you're pointing to, listening lets you to really experience people that way and experience yourself that way, that going back to the old way is probably not so much
Oh
fun. You're
yeah,
like,
it doesn't work anymore. It's like you've worn a pair of shoes that were 3 sizes too small all your life, and you finally got a pair that fit.
right.
There's no way you're going to put those old ones back on again.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I'm curious as to what about this way of listening is so transformative, and it just, like you were speaking to, it lights people up and it lights yourself up, and it takes you to like a deeper place within yourself of listening to your own knowing and your own wisdom. Like what is it about this listening that's so transformative? Because on the surface it's something we all do, but we've only scratched the surface of our listening, because we all listen to stuff all our lives, right? But to me now, that looks like just this very surface of what you're pointing to.
Well, you kind of said it.
Mm.
It's I see you.
Mm.
Little kids again. parents can get really distracted.
Right.
And when when a little kid, um, they'll climb up on your lap and they'll say, "Mommy, mommy." And you say, "What? Mommy, mommy, what? And they'll take your face
Mm,
and they'll hold it until they have you.
mm,
It's like they want to be seen.
mm,
It is so, I mean, and then they'll let go. When you see them, when they know they have you, then usually they forgot what they wanted because it wasn't about what they wanted. They wanted to be
mm,
seen.
mm. Yeah. It's like when we listen to people like that and that deep desire is answered, so much other
That,
things becomes
ah,
available because that thing
ah,
was taken care of. Like, I'm
that's it.
seen, you see me, you
Ah,
really see me.
I'm here. Okay, good.
What I see in that is, huh, for the first time, it's kind of paradoxical, right? Because we're talking about listening, but the felt sense is being seen.
Yeah, and it has
And
nothing to do with vision.
yes, yes. And it's a very felt, we get like add to the paradoxes. It's the seeing is not about vision, but it's more about a felt sense that no, I no, really, I see you.
Yeah,
And I see past your worries and your fears and your doubts, and I see at the heart of the matter.
yeah. And
And
that is oneness.
hmm,
You know, I have had, you probably have too if you've worked with
hmm,
people um, with this understanding. It's like I've had I've had people come and they'll tell me their story,
hmm,
and I just I just listen. And I've had people um, say afterwards that they got what they wanted, and I hardly said anything because they can hear themselves think. They can hear their story while they're telling it,
yeah,
and many times you'll see people seeing what the problem is themselves, and you haven't said a word, but you gave them a chance to get all that out on the table where they can see it for what it is, which is just their thinking.
hmm,
That's not magic. That's the power of being heard
hmm,
because you're hearing yourself too.
right. Well, in the start of this conversation, I can testify that being listened by you was an incredibly unique experience. It's yeah, it felt like I was being heard and seen, but also it helped me to just settle, just really,
Yeah,
really settle. Because I think that's it. Like, once in my heart of hearts, I know I'm being heard and seen, I don't need to try so hard to do that. And then I can settle. And then wisdom kicks back in, or knowing, right? And then transformation just naturally takes place where I can see my problems and I can see what's in my way.
that's right.
Yeah.
It's just it's so simple.
Mm,
It's not particularly easy to be simple at first. It's clumsy because we're so used to thinking the more mental activity that's involved, the better.
I love that. Yeah.
And that actually opposite of that, the less we overthink everything, the more room there is for common sense and creativity and
Mm.
understanding.
In in your work, I'd love for you to share your experiences of how you've seen listening impact a community or the people in front of you. And because I remember in other classes you've talked about it, and it's always my favorite stories about how listening to youth and how they've gone from really anxious to combative to really settledness. And I'd love for you to share that.
Well, see, the problem, if there is one with that, is that you just described it with yourself.
Yeah.
People listen when you're listening to you, being listened to, you settle. You quit trying to explain. You quit trying to you quit trying to be understood because you're being understood. Does that make sense?
That makes more sense than I thought it would. I didn't realize how much energy goes into wanting to be understood.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so for example, even at 34 or 35, I'm still trying to get my dad's approval. And what I realize now is I don't really want the approval. I just want to be understood because I felt like I'm not. So I try really hard to do things and be successful. Like, here, Dad, see, look what I did. And sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. More oftentimes I don't. And I just realized just now I just want to be understood by someone that I really love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Thanks. I think I'm gonna be okay now that I see it, but I didn't see it before, right? Like our mutual friend Michael says, you can't fix what you can't see, but now just through this conversation I can see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like how old is your dad?
68, 69.
69. What makes you think he doesn't understand you?
My own thinking. Because like I have this expectation of the way approval is supposed to look like. I'm like, I'm not getting it. So therefore I'm making up stuff in my head.
Oh, okay. What's it supposed to look like? It's in your rule book up here. That
Right. I guess it's supposed to look like, good job, son. Super proud of you. I love you, you know. And
okay.
Yeah.
So apparently it's not his habit to say things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he doesn't say things like that, you think he doesn't approve of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Well, it's funny now that you say it. It wasn't funny when it was in my head.
Oh, so us humans are so funny, the things that we can make up. Oh my gosh. It's just it's like a little contract that we've signed and we don't even know it.
Yeah,
And
right.
that one would be, I promise I'm not going to feel appreciated and understood by my father until he says these words. We're really proud of you, and da, 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 da. Would you sign that?
I would not sign that.
It would be just your lawyer would say, really, you want to sign
I'm not
that?
sure about that.
Until
I'm not
he
sure about that,
changes his
𝗔𝗃𝗀𝘁.
personality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're operating under a lot of invisible contracts, and that answers the question, right? How is listening transformative? And it helps you to see and feel all these premises and contracts that you're living under.
Right. You catch yourself at some really funny things.
Yeah. And
if you have a good laugh rather than beat yourself up for having a funny habit, then that's really
right. I think I just got Mavis Karn because in my head it looked like a big deal, but when you say it, it's like, that does actually sound pretty silly, that I would require people to do certain things for me to feel good about myself. I'm like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, so see, the thing about being 81, that you've had pretty much every bad habit everybody else has had. Because you've had a long time to just really mess things up.
Yeah.
But the good news is, so what?
Tell me more about so what.
They're just thoughts.
Yeah.
They're not you. They're not me. They're just my brain lying to me.
I would love to be able to do that all the time. And if I'm honest with myself, I don't, so tell me about listening to yourself that to be able to do what you just described, because oftentimes more often than not, it does look pretty scary in my head, and the thinking does
That's
look
it.
real enough, and I'm trying really hard to listen. And like I'm hanging on to this listening thing, like this is supposed to work. It looks pretty dark in here. Like, how do you?
Well, listening isn't about what you do, it's about what you quit doing.
Please say more to that.
Well, I don't have an agenda when I'm listening. I just want to hear. I just want to have that feeling of connectedness. So I just let go of everything that doesn't feel like that. You can't work at that. You can't work at doing less.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
Just, it's a good thing to, I think, also not be afraid of looking silly to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I just realized that too. There's that too, right? It's like when you point in our work, when we point to, or at least in my work, point to people what they're really up against. It's usually them, and then them. Like, you're afraid you're gonna look silly, your own thinking, your own contracts, secret contracts you've signed. And as you were speaking, an image came up, when, especially when you said you let go of anything that doesn't feel connected. It's like you're walking along a path at night and there's these little lights guiding the way. And the moment you walk off that path with the lights, it just feels weird. You're like, oh, it's not connected. Let's go back to the light. And it's always there.
It's like, here's the advantage of not being afraid of looking stupid or silly or whatever, is that, well, let me give you an example. A few years ago, quite a few years ago now, actually, I had decided that people were so used to their phones and devices that did things for them that they were losing the strength of their speech, because people were getting more and more difficult to hear. They mumbled and all of that. And my sister was a prime example of that. We were in the car one day and I kept saying, huh, what? And she said, Mavis, have you had your hearing checked? And I said, no, why? She said, well, you keep wanting me to talk louder. And I said, well, you talk so soft, right? And that was about the end of it, but that stuck with me. And one day I was in Costco and they were doing hearing checks, and I thought, I think I'll get my hearing checked. Well, I had lost quite a bit of hearing. And so I have hearing aids, right? But the funny part of that story is I had this whole theory about people not talking loud anymore.
Yeah.
And it was me. I was the problem. I could hardly wait to tell that to my clients.
I'm the problem.
It's like, because it doesn't do me or them any good to think that I never make any mistakes. I never get off the path. I have no ridiculous habits. Of course I do. But the fun part about discovering them is that after a little bit of embarrassment, now I got a great story to tell.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's fun because I don't want people to think I'm made of something other than what they're made of, because that isn't true. That isn't true. We are all made of the same intelligent energy that everything is made of. I don't have some sort of secret something or other. I don't. I just lucked out. And 40 some years ago, found out how I was made.
Mm.
You know, you've probably heard me say this before. We get so enamored of the apps on our phone.
Right.
They're nothing compared to the apps we have.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Just imagine, we're talking about listening. Just imagine this app that if you quit thinking about anything, you just let your thoughts flow
Mm.
and you just get out of the way, clear your head. Don't try to understand anybody. Don't try to figure out anybody. Don't analyze them. Don't diagnose them. Don't see if you can figure out what their problem is.
Mm.
You just relax, clear your head, be still, and see what comes to you.
Mm.
And you will connect with a person in a way that you never could using just your personal intellect. You will connect with people that don't even speak the same language.
Mm.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
That is an amazing app.
I think so. Totally. 5 stars.
We all have that.
Yeah.
We don't have to earn it or sign up for it or buy it. We have that. It's like at another level, it's like our just with intention,
Mm.
we can change the aperture in our lens in our eyes.
Mm.
You looking at something right now, if you look at something farther away,
Mm.
the lens changes
It
because
does.
you intended to see something there. What? Who made that up?
Yeah.
That's no small ability. And it's built into all of us. Available all the time. We're using it all the time.
Mm.
We really should have much more gratitude and respect for our own divine engineering, for who we already are.
Mm.
It's all taken care of. Fear not.
I get that tattooed somewhere. That's the first thing I forget when I get afraid.
Well,
Yeah.
getting afraid isn't a mistake.
Mm.
It's a sensation that's letting you know the way that you're feeling right now is from your thinking.
And you're right.
I mean, if you didn't know,
Mm.
if you didn't have fear, you wouldn't know when to trust your thinking and when not to.
Wow. Please say more to that. That is profound.
Well, it's like, you know why you think it's profound? Because it's true.
Yeah. I got Mavis Karn.
It's just true.
Yeah.
It's like, if you didn't have pain,
Mm.
you'd leave your hand on a hot stove.
That totally makes. Yeah. I see that now. Yeah.
So we need it. We need fear to let us know when we're terrifying ourselves about something. And it isn't just that it works when we're actually in danger,
Mm.
because we'll get afraid. But I know that you've heard all kinds of stories about people who were in some sort of real danger, and they'll tell the story of it, and they'll say something like, I don't know what happened, but I just saw this and I did this and
Hmm.
I don't know.
I
I
can,
don't know how I got out of it. And then they'll be sitting there
yeah,
when they're safe again and they start thinking about what could have happened, and all of a sudden they're terrified. They're safe now, but
mm,
they're imagining what could have happened if they hadn't have done this and this and this and that.
mm. And I see how respecting yourself and how you're divinely engineered and respecting the listening app really does help you see that, and
Absolutely.
help you see that listening to yourself with a quiet mind, and you will see how you're scaring yourself versus being afraid. You can see
Right.
yourself being afraid of your thinking rather than being afraid of the
That's right.
circumstance.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, who made all that up? Let's just, we're
Yeah.
covered.
We're covered.
The universe has our back.
Yeah.
We just didn't know it.
Mm. Yeah. I think about half, like I'd say 80%, 90% of the stuff on my mind just like melted away. It's like, nope.
Let go of it.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to hold on to it anymore.
No, but you probably will forget that again.
Yeah.
But you'll feel that,
Yeah.
and then you'll let go again, and you'll just get better and better at noticing when you tighten up, and you'll let go. You're
Yeah.
going to be doing something every moment. It might as well be noticing and letting go.
Right. If I'm going to be doing something anyways, might as well be noticing and letting go.
Something that works. Yeah.
Something that's always that I've come to respect is whatever experiencing I'm having right now, I know this could look very different in an hour or two.
Absolutely. So what?
Yeah. So what? I'd be curious to see. So to me, it looks like there's this divine app within us, and it's always there. It's always been there. And for us, it's almost what I'm seeing. It's almost like seeing what gets in the way of that app. And I'd love for you to speak to that. Like what gets in the way of this? What gets in the way of listening like this to ourselves or to other people?
Habit.
Hmm.
Period. That's all.
Hmm.
Just a habit. We're not our habits.
Hmm.
It's just a habit. It's like listening to the radio in your car if you have one and there's static.
Yeah.
You don't turn the volume up. You
Oh,
tune the static out. And there's
that's
the music.
good. Yeah.
There's the music. All that racket, it's just static. Just know that's all it is like tuning it out.
Hmm.
And then what's left is all you need. And this isn't something that you do once and then it's a one and done. It's like, and you're in the moment, you choose all the time.
You have choice of
Yeah.
what you're listening to.
How you want to feel.
Hmm.
It's like
So
maybe you've heard this. It's like we have a hand,
Mhm.
and I remember my son once, one of my lunatic sons, when he was a, I don't know, teenager. Teenage boys are, at least mine, were lunatics, because they thought they were going to live forever and
Mhm.
just
I've done
did
that.
accordingly. And one of them went through the storm door in our house once, running away from the other one,
Yeah.
and he almost severed his finger.
Oh.
So we had to go and he had to get it replaced. Well, it didn't fall all the way up, but he had to have it operated on.
Yeah.
And the guy that did it was apparently a very well-known hand doctor. He just operated on hands. That's it.
Yeah.
And this doctor was so enthusiastic about hands. He has such admiration for hands. And he told me how many bones are in a hand and what the hand can do. Then it's like, I just got really interested in hands. And my son, it healed all up and he's fine again. But like, we can take our hand and we can make a fist, right? Really tight fist. And what can we do with it when it's like that?
Probably break a lot of things if we tried hard enough.
Break things, pound things, hit
Pound things, right? Yeah.
And occasionally useful, maybe. Most
Right.
of the time, it just hurts us or somebody else or both.
Right.
What can we do with our hands when it's relaxed and open?
Make art. I could build a house. I could hold things. I could touch things.
Pick up things.
Pick up things.
Touch
Yeah.
yourself, eat yourself, drive
Yeah.
a car, play instruments, wave, gesture.
Wave, gestures. I could communicate colorful things to people too.
You can talk, sign language.
Yeah. Talk.
It's endless.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide how we use our hand?
I do.
Yeah, it's not your hand that goes off and does stuff without your permission.
Yeah.
You decide how to use it.
Yeah.
Same with this. Clenched and tight is rarely useful. It's exhausting and it hurts.
Yeah.
Relaxed and open. It's the most amazing tool. And yet you can tell when you misuse it because it hurts.
Yeah, I felt that. Yeah.
Same with that.
Yeah.
We, who we really are in charge. Now that does not mean that we can prevent thoughts from coming into our head. I can't.
I can't.
It isn't even admirable to be able to do that. But you do get to decide once they're there, whether to make use of it or not, whether to believe it or not, whether to act on it or not. And you get guidance in that decision-making through your emotions. They let you know the quality of the experience you're creating this moment. What an app.
What an app.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And
you're never left alone with it. It doesn't need a battery.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave you ever. It lets you know constantly the quality of the experience you are creating with your ability to create images. To think.
I think I just answered my own question because I wanted to ask, how can listening change your life? And I think I see it now. When you really, really get what you're pointing to, your whole experience can change in a moment.
Yes.
And your experience of people can change in a moment. And it allows them, what I'm seeing now is how, gosh, when people are by listening in the way that you're pointing to, and you can help them go from the tight-fisted to open-handedness. And then of course they're going to change because they're not so wound up.
That's
and
right.
The behaviors that come with being wound up dissolve and they become a new person because you were listening to them. And I see how that could change a whole community for the better.
Absolutely. You become who you already are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're letting go of what you're not.
I love that.
When I'm listening, it doesn't mean that judgments might not come into my head, or
Mhm.
um, like dangling little, oh, tell this story, or do, it might come in. The point is, I can see it and I can feel whether it's off track or it will lead to, say a question comes into my head, I can feel whether it's appropriate or not now.
Mm.
I can feel whether a story would further the and deepen the conversation or interrupt it. I can feel it. It's not that I think about that. I just notice and even when I
Yes.
tell it,
I
you can
I
feel it.
yeah. Yeah. It's a felt sense. And I've tried to explain that to people. Like I was telling them like a story of where I wanted to do something and it just felt like, don't do that, Nikon. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I will ask this question, a lot of people, I'll ask you. Um, when is the last time you felt the way you wish you could feel all the time?
I was in a car with uh, a lady, and none of us were talking, but I just felt like I was at home.
Mm.
It was about 6 or 7 months ago, and it was the most strangest feeling because it was the first time where it was a very ordinary day and doing a very ordinary thing. We were driving to a museum, but I felt more at home with myself than I've ever felt, ever.
That was you.
Yeah.
That's the music without static.
Mm. What I just realized just now is that if that's in me, then it's always been there.
That's right.
It's always been there. The music without the static,
That's right.
right?
It's just the noise we make that keeps us from feeling who we are.
Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it and unpack it some more, as being with this person, I felt so heard and so seen and so understood that I just went from this to this, and that was the feeling, that was the result, was the feeling of being so at home and so like I didn't need anything else in the world other than just being right there next to that person, because I felt so seen and so heard. I think that's
You want to
incredibly
make
cool.
sure you didn't sign a contract that said you can't feel that way unless you're
Right,
with that person.
right,
It'd be tempting to do that, wouldn't
right.
it?
Yeah. Well, now I know that now, thanks to this conversation. But I think because I didn't know this then, I think I probably did sign that contract at some point. And
Good
now,
catch.
yeah, good catch, right? Good job, Nikon. Giving myself my own validation.
Really, actually, every time we catch ourselves misusing the gift,
Right.
we get muscle.
Mm.
We get heart muscle.
Heart muscle, listening muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I realize now, just having been on the receiving end and really seeing it, of this type of listening, and knowing it's available to everybody, every single person who has breath.
It's the way that you've been listening to me.
Yeah.
So what you think you didn't know, you actually know.
Yeah.
But I would know if you weren't listening.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I think if people who are listening to this, that would be another big takeaway. It's just, if you could just notice how you're listening, that's probably half the battle.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
It's kind of like um, if you know you've been distracted, if you notice you're distracted, as soon as you notice you're not.
My favorite story that you tell about that I tell to other people is like, you know, when you're in a car and you're listening to music, but you have to go back and listen to the same song because you missed the whole song. I do that all the time. I used to do that a lot. I'm like, wait a minute, I got to go back and listen to the song again because I didn't hear it, even though the headphones were in my head, but I was somewhere else.
Isn't that amazing? We
That's
can
wild.
drown out actual sound.
We can drone out actual sound. And it makes me see you can drone out actual experiences.
That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see how the world looks a lot more hopeful to me now. Because if people could just see this, they'd have their experience it would help their experience or help them be less afraid of their experience.
Every once in a while when I watch the news, I think, oh man, I've got to do more. But then I remember how powerful a ripple effect is.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if all you ever did is just listen to anybody you have a relationship with. It doesn't mean you don't talk, but it's appropriate, deepening talk. If that's all you ever did, you are 50% of every relationship you have. And that would bring that relationship up to higher ground. Every interaction you have, if you take care of your end of it, it brings the whole thing to higher ground. Because people can feel what it feels like to be heard. And that's how they learn to do it.
Yeah.
It's not by me telling them. You can feel what it feels like to be heard. And you can feel what it feels like to really listen to someone. And at the same time, you're teaching them how to listen to someone.
Yeah. It's like, it's a twofer. You get to listen to other people and you get to listen to yourself in a whole new way.
There's no downside to it. None.
There's no downside to it.
And, you know, the pandemic was this tiny, 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 tiny little nasty thing. Yes. And it killed a lot of people. Well, I think there can be a listening pandemic.
Yeah.
Start with you.
Yes, it can.
Start with you.
And everybody listening, that was what I felt going into this conversation, that I wanted to create a ripple effect of listening for anybody who comes across this, because it's not like something, if you work hard at it enough, you'll get it. It's, you can do this in the next 5 minutes and make that decision to really, really listen in this way.
Just don't do anything. Just let go of everything but that feeling. You know, do you have a dog?
I used to, but my family has dogs.
Okay. Dogs really like to be listened to.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice that?
Yeah, they do. Their ears perk up, and the way they look at you, it changes.
That's right.
That takes it to a whole different level, because communication is happening, but it's not through spoken word. It's through felt experience of connectedness, and it's listening.
That's right. There's a
Yeah.
dog in the neighborhood that is a rescue dog. There's a woman that rescues dogs that have been really badly treated. And I've known this dog for about 6, 7 years.
Mm,
Because the woman brings him down to my house
mm,
um, because he calms down.
mm, mm.
And all I do is just tell him he's a good boy, and I listen to him. And he, I don't know why, he just, I do know why. I'm just present with him. And most people are
Yeah.
with their pets.
I think I just understood an experience I used to have. I could never explain it. I would watch when I used to work at corporate, I would watch my boss chew somebody out next to me and turn to me and be a completely different person. And I thought, oh, maybe this person's not mentally well. But then I realized because the way I show up like this, it's hard to be that way with somebody who understands you.
Yeah,
And I never understood that until just now.
that's exactly right. It's really, really hard to fight with someone that's peaceful.
One of my favorite things that you said to Michael on Michael's podcast is, you don't get stupid when you're peaceful.
You
And there's a premise that when you're peaceful, nothing happens, but so much more happens, but you just might not be able to see or experience it. Yeah.
you don't get, you don't fail to take care of things. You don't act if it's need. You don't not act if it's needed. It just comes from wisdom.
Yeah. Mm.
So this dog, his name is Louis. His dog. It's a win-win thing because I don't want to have a dog and take care of it anymore. I've had enough animals to have a zoo, but I love dogs.
Yeah.
And so he comes down to be listened to, and I get to have a dog.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on time, and I'd like to ask you if you could give a gift to people who are listening. It could be a pointing, it could be a knowing, it could be an insight about listening. What would you like to give to people that you feel would really make a difference?
Well, I think, like in probably most things, first person you want to practice listening to is yourself. Put yourself at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And be really, really kind about it.
I remember we were in a master class with Dr. 𝗞𝗿𝗀, and Michael asked him, what would you like to give to these students who are going to go out and teach this or this knowing and be practitioners? And Dr. 𝗞𝗿𝗀 said, be gentle on yourself. I burst out into tears. It's like, oh my God, that's so sweet. Because it was said with the most felt kindness and heart. And I felt that in what you just said, and to listen to yourself kindly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really just treat yourself the way you'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
Appreciate yourself.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? Just one.
Yeah.
Do you appreciate your father?
Immensely. He's one of my heroes. I think he's the coolest person in the world. He's a self-made artist. He's a glass artist. He's like world renowned. He's the only person in the world who does what he does. You want to hear a funny story?
I do.
So I was on a podcast with Rob Cook, and it was like I'm like the first coach from Thailand to be on this podcast, and I was super proud. I was like, look at me, I sent it to him to listen, because in the podcast I talk about how I went to business school to prove my dad was wrong about how to do business, but I realized that he was right all along. And so he listened to it. I was like, what'd you think, Dad? What'd you think? And he said, I didn't really get it, but thanks for sending it. But this is what he said next, maybe. This is what he said. This guy writes me a text with this long, like profound letter or note about wisdom. And he says things like, he said something like, 𝗏𝗏, to me, it looks really simple. We are of nature. That's where we come from. That's where we are. And that's where we're going. I was like, you told me you didn't get it, Dad. I was like, apparently you do,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started to laugh.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Because it's so simple. How could you not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he would be surprised to find out that you sometimes think you need something from him.
Mm.
He'd probably be surprised to find out that you don't. I mean, that you don't know that you don't.
Yeah.
That you already have his love and affection, and appreciation, and you can't imagine why you don't know that, because he feels it so strongly.
Mm. Yeah. I imagine if I put down my thinking long enough, I'd probably feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I wasn't so busy of the way it's supposed to look like.
You're gonna see evidence of it very shortly.
I'm gonna send you an email about it.
You are, I promise. You are. I didn't.
Yeah.
You star.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much. And this was on my bucket list, like life bucket list, is to have a one-on-one conversation with Mavis on a podcast. So thanks for making my dream come true. And I want you to know how much I respect you and your work, and the ripple too, because this conversation will ripple out through me and the conversations I have in my work. And
It's that amazing.
It's even like tomorrow, parts of this conversation get to be translated into Thai in a video that will help people. Isn't that cool?
Wow, that's amazing.
In a whole different language, to like that. So because of language, Thailand has like 70 million people. So because of this conversation now becomes available to 70 million people because of language. Yeah.
Wow. And all we're doing is hanging out and having a good time.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Sweet.
I'll keep you posted. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
And hopefully we'll get to do this again, or I'll see you on one of Michael's programs or somewhere. Sure. Yeah. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.